Still don't know what to do with these hands. My goodness. Hello, my BC WrestlePod nerds out there. And welcome to a very special late night edition of the Ultraviolet Union, your GCW pay-per-view review squad here on the BC WrestlePod. I am one of the hosts. I am actually a co-host. And I'm not the lead for once when it comes to this team, so this is nice. But I am one of the co-hosts, Mikey. And of course, joining me this evening is our official GCW correspondent, my home. You know what? I call him a friend. He can call me whatever. Dynamics are really weird in these types of situations. But our GCW correspondent, Andrew, who is, our main focal point, our main lead, our grand poobah of all things GCW here at BC WrestlePod, joins me tonight. Hi, Andrew.
Hey, how's it going? This event definitely had ups and downs, both in the event itself and in my reactions, even many days after. I don't think I expected to feel the way I feel about this card, and we'll talk about some of that as we come into it. I thought it was going to be a crazy card, and it definitely was crazy, but not the kind of crazy that I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and you might be asking to yourself, why is that? Well, you're going to have to watch the review to figure it out. So, before we jump into the review straight on, really short, sweet, housekeeping, follow us on the social medias, BC WrestlePod. We're anywhere and everywhere where social media is a thing. just be careful because social media is a brush. Fire is a hazard, you know. But trust us, if you want a little levity from all that, follow us on BC WrestlePod. We promise you a good time. And if the social media game is not your thing, you could still show your love for 10 wrestling nerds on the internet by buying some merch. We had some really cool stuff, and I am currently working on some designs. I want things to look really cool for 2025. So I'm working on a couple of designs. I actually have a friend of mine who volunteered to create something as well. So I'm excited. This is going to be a lot of fun. But I am done talking because now I'm going to literally pass the baton to Andrew to kind of lead us through GCW. He's not on the AEW review, so I can't do the touch the tip with him. So
There will be no touching of tips, no scissoring, none of that stuff there. Not even shaking hands. That's no AEW or AEW adjacent activities.
Not even for MXM Collection? That's hardcore.
I mean, if they come over to GCW, maybe something can happen. But
oh my gosh. Well, let's continue. So, Andrew, I have officially passed the baton to you. So, why don't you lead us through?
Yeah. So we had the People versus GCW is coming from the historic and classic Hammerstein Ballroom, which seems to be kind of this revitalized location, especially over the last couple months. We've seen ROH and AEW and all that kind of stuff showing up there. And this was a bit of a redemption, or at least an attempt at a redemption story for the GCW. Coming back here because a couple of years ago they had their big event there, and it was not received super highly by a lot of people. It was a big event. There was a lot of stuff that people didn't enjoy about it or had questions about.
There are whole YouTube videos dedicated to that night.
But I think you and I are both very aware of how much GCW has changed, especially in the last year, even in the last 6 months. They've grown and they've changed. And as far as I'm concerned, obviously I'm biased. I am the GCW guy. They are doing things in an independent level at a non-independent skill. They're sometimes telling more consistent and long-term storytelling better than some of the other bigger companies. They have incredible talent. They've got both experienced talent and prospective talent. And I, for one, was super excited about this. The promos that we got for it, the matches that we got for it, everything looked like GCW was ready to put on an incredible show. And I myself kept calling it the WrestleMania of GCW. And it started off pretty well. We got the kickoff show, and the kickoff show started with a scramble bout that had some of our very familiar faces. They had Mr. Danger. They had Marcus Mathers, Fuego del Sol, Rich Swann, Blake Christian, and one called Manders. Interestingly enough, when I looked back and rewatched some of the highlights from this one, it reminded me a lot of a TNA X Division multi-person match. You had all of these high flyers and then the one big beefy dude. I myself thought this was a really good match. I loved it. Tons of action, high-flying things. It was fun to watch, and it started me off at a really high level, and I think that's why I rated this match the way I did, because I was still at that high of what I was with my expectations. What did you think about this as a kickoff show? Literally, this was not just the first match of the main card, but this was the first match, if you were going to watch the entire thing, to watch.
What I enjoyed about this is that because these individuals weren't on the main card, and so they weren't involved in the main stuff that we were getting, but it was nice to see some of the familiar faces that we've grown accustomed to seeing since we started watching GCW here on the channel for the last 6 or 7 months or so. So Mr. Danger, Marcus Mathers especially. I thought this was just high and energetic. It was I loved it. It was fantastic. It was what it needed to be. It was just everybody doing stuff, and I enjoyed myself. This is great. I'm
Well,
so happy.
this I think.
Go ahead.
Oh, good.
No, I was gonna say go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, that's all good. I think it was also a good example of where GCW is, especially in their booking, because you did have people like Mr. Danger, who we pretty much only see really in GCW, especially in like shows that you're streaming and watching on television, things like that. But then you have Marcus Mathers, who now has a WWE ID. You've got Fuego del Sol and Blake Christian, who've both been on Ring of Honor, and Fuego obviously was on AEW. Rich Swann, obviously, is well known from TNA. Um, and then you have a staple like one called Manders. So I feel like this was a good way. Not only was it people that have earned they it's great for them to be involved in an event like this because they're such like staples of GCW. But it was also a good way of showing people who might not watch GCW as regularly as we do, like it's not just these independent wrestlers, it's people from all over that come in to wrestle here and face each other and work together, and it's like the whole melting pot of professional wrestling around the world.
Yeah, and I mean, especially with this opening scramble too. When we look at the last couple of months since we started covering these, I was like, everybody we've seen, and I was kind of has gone themselves on the main card. And for me personally, I was really happy to see Manders win this one because I was like,
Mm-hmm.
thank goodness Man's got something. And if I'm correct, Manders will be showing up in Progress real soon, which makes me super happy.
Yeah, this I thought this was a good way to kick it off. I'm interested to see where we're going to see some of these folks post People versus GCW. Manders, obviously, he won this, so it'll be interesting to see what that means for him going forward. Or is this a way of like showing that they're going to do more with him? Because I know there's been a lot going on with stories, long-term stories in a lot of the title pictures. Blake Christian is a former champion, and he has the two dynamic characters that we've seen regularly. There's this like dark kind of supernatural-esque version, which I've really been enjoying, and I'd like to see more of that. And then there's the classic like revitalized Blake Christian of like what was the he's the I forget what it is, the vanilla whatever it is. And so we're getting to see these two different these styles of him, so I'm interested to see if we're going to see any more of him doing either of those things. He's incredible. I enjoy his in-ring performances a lot. And Rich Swann has looked incredible since coming back from his hiatus. So and mad respect to Mr. Danger. He always impresses. I think he's going to be someone who's going to really, really kill it in 2025. So we'll see what happens. But after this, it's a six-way scramble wasn't chaotic enough. We decided to have a kickoff rumble, which started with a whole lot of people out there. We had the first entry that we got to see was Crowbar. And then we just basically got to see everybody else that was backstage come out and get involved in this matchup. It was a little chaotic and busy in the beginning. It kind of felt a little much to me. It did start to clean up and clear up as we went on, and we'll talk about what happened post this match. But how did you feel about, we went from one big multi-person match to an even bigger multi-person match, and quite a few lesser known faces were in there. What did you feel about having this like two of these big multi-people matches, and we got a few extra in the main card too, kicking off the show for GCW?
So, whereas the scramble was the right amount of people for chaos, this was like way too many people for chaos, in my opinion. And I love a good like over the top rumble style, but like when you have like 30 plus people in that small ring right there, I was just like, I am just like, uh, Yeah, this was just a lot to follow. And it wasn't until we got down to like the final 6 or 7, I was just like, all right, now I could see where we're going. So, and I'm just
Well,
like, yeah.
we did have one big entrance that I think surprised a lot of people and led to what ultimately happened after the match, which was the surprise appearance of um, TNA, TNA's digital media champion, PCO, uh, becoming an entrant into the Rumble, and he would ultimately go on by eliminating Shane Mercer to become the winner of the Rumble. I don't know about you, Mikey, but I was super surprised to just see PCO like show up in this Rumble. I know it had been talked about him being at this event. I didn't even think about him being in the Rumble when they announced that this Rumble was happening. Um, and I'm sure by now everyone that follows wrestling on social media and all that stuff has seen what happened with PCO. But did you expect this out of PCO from you? We both were reviewing TNA up until a couple months ago, and you still do. But from what we saw from PCO working in TNA, did was this anywhere on your radar?
So, first, I was a little surprised to see PCO here, but then I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. Like, PCO wasn't scheduled for Genesis on the night that this
Mm-hmm.
show was happening. So it's like, okay, have the other wrestlers go out and do other shows that they want. And then, he wins the Rumble. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. This is a lot of fun. I think I'm interested to see where we go with this and what's going to happen. And then, sir, we're days later from this, and I still don't know how I feel about this. I'm like, oh my gosh. Because then he smashes the freaking TNA digital media champion and then cuts a promo, not even in the PCO voice. And I was just like, oh, he big mad. Okay, so that's how we feeling.
Yeah, just I mean, so to talk about it more, yeah, PCO smashed it, went off about TNA and basically how they haven't used him. We found out now that his contract expired at the end of December. He's not going back to TNA, especially now. There was some huge news tonight in TNA with the Digital Media Championship, oddly enough, involving GCW kind of as well. But yeah, this surprised me because over the last year and a half, PCO was such a staple at TNA. Um, you know, with all the crazy matches he had at the end of last year, and then him having this long storylines this year. Well, I guess technically it's this last year now, 2024, and winning the titles. Like I at least thought he was going to drop it and they were going to have something big go there, but whatever the backstory is and all that stuff, it was insane to see. Um, and because we've seen actions like this in the past, it was hard to tell at first if this was a work or a shoot because we've literally seen people, you know, do things like this, especially when they cross over into other promotions and try to tell these other start promoting or cross promotion stories. Um, yeah, it felt really weird, especially because for me it felt like we were seeing the we were seeing a weird blend of the person and the character. Um, and it also felt really weird because as people have discovered later, GCW didn't really know what was happening. So it also put this weird like kind of feeling going out of the kickoff show into the main card because they had to cut away from PCO, and they were trying to prevent him from doing what he was doing, try to cut him off, and then they had to come back, and they were running promos while that was happening. So I don't know. Maybe we should have seen what other things that were coming throughout the night. That this night was just going to kind of go off the rails at different points, but Yeah, it felt really weird, and I get some of the gripes that PCO has if any of the stuff that he's saying is true, but it also felt kind of like it wasn't a great way to exit a company, and it also wasn't a great thing to do at another company's expense when they didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, it was a weird thing to watch. And then, especially since I watched the current product and the fact that we just saw this man like not even a week ago in the last pre-recorded episode before the
Mhm.
paper for before Genesis, like the same week, I'm just like, damn, man. I'm like, I'm disappointed because PCO and TNA the last 2 years has been
Mhm.
kind of carrying it for me for some of my favorite when he's in my favorite match stipulation times. He literally is the Monsters Ball
Yeah.
extreme hardcore person that TNA had. And I was like, man, I'm disappointed in PCO. Like, not in your opinions, because everybody has the right to feel however they feel. But
Mhm.
I let me put it this way so I don't get in trouble and PCO doesn't come find my house. I think there are better ways to like in a healthy way, kind of express the feelings and emotions that you're going through, and I feel like smashing in the digital media championship, okay, fine with that. Going on a verbal tirade afterwards, especially like you said, Andrew, at another company's expense, and they didn't know that you were going to do that. Not only does that not look great for you in regards to your relationship with TNA, because that bridge is set on fire,
Yeah.
but you also may or may not have also damaged any future relationship you possibly might have with GCW. They're like, no. So if they choose to, the
Yeah.
PCO could no longer just come to GCW.
Yeah. But with that, we kicked off the show and moved on to the main show. And we kicked off with a match I was surprised that we started the card with.
Same.
It was the ladder match that originally was for the Ultraviolet Championship that was vacated by Sawyer Wreck when she retired after winning it at the Nick Gage Invitational. Um, and turned out to be a unification title match, or yeah, unification title match, a DLC unification match for the Ultraviolet Championship.
Oh no, we've lost Andrew. Alrighty. So while the internet decides to fix itself for Andrew, I will kind of take over a little bit. So this match had a couple of different changes as we got closer and closer to the show. So initially, it was just for, as Andrew stated, for the GCW Ultraviolent Championship, which then we added the
All right.
GCW. Oh, there we go. I was like, you froze for a little bit, so I had like nothing was happening. I had to take over. I was like word vomiting.
No worries. Sorry about that. Yeah, that was weird. Both of us looked like we were frozen out from my perspective. So, anyway, I heard you saying the same thing I was saying. Yeah, this was the unification title match for these two titles because we got some extra participants with Maki Ito joining and putting her title on the line. And then once we had the introductions of the match, we also found out that Cyclope, former GCW Tag Team Champion, was also involved in this matchup. So we had, as you can see here, Reina Yamashita, Matt Tremont, Brandon Kirk, Matthew Justice, Dr. Redacted, John Wayne Murdoch, Cyclope, Drew Parker, and Maki Ito. And it was also announced that this would be Drew Parker's final match, win or lose.
Brandon Kirk,
Um,
wasn't it?
oh, sorry, Brandon Kirk, not Drew Parker.
I was like, Drew Parker, no.
No. I was looking at the wrong picture when I was saying the name. Um, so there was just a lot going on in this match. A lot was made. We talked about it in the live stream. They said that John Wayne Murdoch, the day he found out he was in this match, was also the day his father passed away. So there was a lot of emotion and investment in this. And I feel like this match, in a way, it was good that it was here because this, for me, got me back on track for my excitement for it. But as I've since learned that there's a lot of rules that happen under the New York Athletic Commission, and a lot of those revolve around things like bleeding wrestlers and injuries and things like that. And I'm all about supporting the health and the welfare of the performers. But this also, like, I think set me up for feeling like the rest of the night was a very safe event.
Yes.
And I never feel like GCW isn't. Okay, I shouldn't say I never feel like it isn't safe. Sometimes I'm worried that it's not safe, but it always seems like people come out fairly well. So this just, it felt like it was tamed down GCW. It was GCW PG-13.
Yes.
And all of that stuff aside, I still thought this match was really good. I thought it was really fun. Lots of fun spots in it, surprising spots that had me nervous. How did you feel coming out of the kickoff show? Coming into this, we were both surprised where it was. All of that set aside, what were your opinions on this match as a matchup and the outcome of it?
So I will keep my thoughts short because you pretty much covered everything else. Yeah, this will be brought up throughout the whole entire night. New York Athletic Commission definitely didn't help when it came to certain parts. And this match was one of them, unfortunately, for me. I still enjoy the action, and I love watching people crash through things because it's a feat to behold. But not to say that blood was needed, but it's like an extra flavor that makes it be like, oh my gosh, this is for the hardcore champion. All these people are out here. We like fighting for their lives out here. Somebody needs to get a blood pack stat. So I am a gremlin for chaos, right? I love chaos. It's what we do here. I feel like we could have just stuck with like the original 6 that we were going to have, because originally it was a 6, and then it grew to 7, and then it grew to 8, and then Ciclope was added during the show to make it 9. I'm like, this is too many people in the ring. I'm sorry. 9 people in this match is way too much for me, especially because then it makes it hard for everybody to get a shot to kind of shine a little bit. Now, granted, everybody got to do moments like Maki Ito got to do what does she best and put on fake tears and have everybody attack at the beginning of the match, which is so good. And then, of course, Matthew Justice just doesn't care about. He is the Darby Allin at GCW, and he just crashes through anything he feels like. And I'm like, sir, whether it be in GCW, CMLL, or MLW, you're just finding ways to crash through things. Like, what is happening, Matthew Justice? I need some answers. I was really kind of bummed of how tamed Rena was in this match. Like, I forgot she was in this match. I was like, we didn't get to see her that often. I was like, what's she doing out here? Where'd she go? Yeah, I mean, again, I love me some good controlled chaos, but too many people, and it was a little underwhelming. I'm not gonna lie. It's not because of what we saw. It was just because there's too many people.
Well, and I think the tamed down problem, like if this had been, honestly, if we had seen similar action from like, say, like the main event, like at the GCW world title picture or any of those other matches, it would have been, crazy. But we're talking about the Ultraviolet Championship, the Extreme Championship.
Yeah.
And we're talking about deathmatch wrestlers like Rina Yamashita, Matt Tremont, Brandon Kirk, Drew Parker, John Wayne Murdoch, Dr. Redacted, like people that we more often than not see them bloody and beaten. And I think because there was the concern about bleeding and things like that, we didn't see light tubes, we didn't see gusset plates, we didn't see a lot of the things that we normally see. And not saying that we have to see those things, because I like the fact that GCW isn't what everyone expects to just be all death matches, but at the same time, that's something that they do, and they do very well. And all of these wrestlers are deathmatch wrestlers. So when we were going to have this match and for these titles, I think we had a higher expectation. And I agree 100%. We had a 9-person match, follow a 30-person match, follow a 6-person match for our first 3 matches of the night. it was just a lot of people, one after the other.
Yeah, and here's the thing, and it's funny enough because I brought this up again. Not we're talking about GCW, but it's relevant. Earlier in the week, I was reviewing another promotion, and I had the same problem because this promotion's solution for everything is to have multi-person matches, and I'm just like, why do we need this 12-person multi-man match? I was like, 6-on-6 is way too much. I'm like, unless it's like a Survivor Series match, like we don't need that many people in the ring. Like I put the limit at like a 3-on-3 is even a lot for me, depending on who it is. But to have 9 individuals in this match, and here's the thing: I will defend GCW till the day I die. I've become such a huge fan, but I got to call it out on this. I was like, we could have like took 3 people out, and I would have been fine with it all.
100%. Like, I mean, this could have been a 4-way matchup for this title, and we would have gotten a lot more focus on each one of those performers. But ultimately, Matt Tremont comes out as the winner. I think this was the thing I expected the least.
Right.
Maybe I just did. Maybe under that would be Brandon Kirk. I mean, honestly, I expected Brandon Kirk to win this more than I expected Matt Tremont, even after I knew Kirk was going to retire. And that's nothing against Matt Tremont, but it felt like for the last few months leading up to this, he was the one that was selling and putting over all of these younger competitors that were going into this matchup. Like he was passing the baton of death matches to these other performers. And so it'll be really interesting to see what's going to happen now that he's had this unified title. What kind of run he's going to go on and what they're going to do with him in this title following this. So, yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of where we were at that point in the match, or that point in the night. And then we went from this title match to a title contender match, which...
Oh, my heart still hurts.
Before this match, this was a great story that GCW was telling. Ali Catch was coming back after the Japan tour, the breakup of Bussy. We saw her turn on Effie. I think this 3-way chase for the title was up there with Mance Warner, Joey Janela, and Blake Christian, between Effie, Ali Catch, and Mance Warner. The stipulation was put on there after Ali came out and cost Effie his title shot against Mance Warner, and so he got a second one, but he was going to have to beat Ali to get it. If Ali won, she was going to get the title shot, and this could have been the match that really set up the rest of the night for success. And unfortunately, and most unfortunate for Ali Catch, and I do not blame her or this match, either of them, for how the rest of the card played out, but it definitely played a huge impact into it. And that was, the match lasted for about like 2 minutes before Ali Catch landed a suicide dive outside the ring and pulled a Sid Vicious and broke her leg in 2 places, turning it around the other way. And all credit to GCW and Effie. They did as best they could to get her help as quickly as possible, pull the action away from where she was being treated. Mance Warner came out, attacked Effie. And this kind of started us off into a weird place, because it was announced that Effie won by, process of elimination, basically. I do want to kind of skip forward from this because we can kind of talk about this because there wasn't really much to talk about in the matchup, and we can get your feelings on feeling like we didn't get to see this. But I want to jump to the next one because this is where things got really weird, which was our 6-man bout between the NYC OGs and the Real FN Pros. Because Ali was injured, we found out that the athletic commission's rules are that there has to be an ambulance on site, which is fine, although I don't understand why they just have 2 to begin with. And the ambulance that was there had to take Ali to the hospital. Until the second ambulance arrived, in case there was an emergency, no matches could happen. And so we got the longest, most awkward promos from these 6 people who clearly were not prepared to carry like 20 plus minutes of nothing. And just didn't have the improv ability to fill that. No one had any plan on what to do in this scenario. I guess, Mikey, what are your feelings? Like, I know we both have sympathy for Allie and everything that happened, and I can only imagine. I feel bad for Effie too, because they are really friends, and to literally have your friend land on you and break their leg and something that's going to take them out for a while, and also get rid of one of your matches. So we have sympathy for them. But what was your feeling on that situation? And how things were handled as we went into this 6-man match that took forever to get started.
So I am in no means a wrestling aficionado, expert, booker, like all that kind of stuff. So my thought process is not to be taken as like gospel. This is just my personal opinion. I feel that instead of having these 6 verbally go at it and just keep trying to hold the crowd's attention for 21 minutes, I feel that you could have halted them, played a couple of video packages, did some impromptu in the ring. Like, I don't know. I feel like there are better solutions to this. And obviously, no action could happen. So I don't know. You could do something again, interviews, um, run down the card, do something, go to a break, like I think is also an option, even though it was 21, it would have been a 21-minute break. Going to break is an option instead of me sitting there watching. Oh God, this was painful to watch. Like, there's not enough words in the English dictionary. Be like, cringe is what I felt. And it's, these 6 do not have the verbal chops yet. But I feel really bad, especially for our 2 young ones in this one. I feel bad for Carrie and Griffin. I'm just like, man, I wanted this match to be fun because they are the heels in GCW that you just want to punch in the face, and they do a great job at it. And low key, I was kind of looking forward to Homicide like slap and taste out they mouth, because we know Homicide crazy. It just sucked because that weight definitely killed the mood and the momentum, especially when we got to the actual match. I was like, I just don't care. Let it be over, because I am depressed, I am sad, and I am frustrated.
Well, and I feel like part of the issue was I don't think there were a lot of, like, there were people that were excited to see Homicide Grim Reaper and Amazing Red out of like nostalgia, out of like being local heroes, being veterans, doing all that kind of stuff. But this match was not like the match that was selling the card. So you already were fighting that. The best you could hope with is they got in there, started, they kind of went back and forth, and then they got the action down. It happened, and then they pulled their shenanigans on either side. They hit their spots, and the match was over. And I think everyone was in shock when Allie got injured. Then we go to this, like you said, the momentum was definitely killed. If this match wasn't on the card and everything still happened in the same order, we would have had the Garbage Daddies and Violence is Forever come out following the Effie and Allie match. I think those teams might have been able to pull it off, but also you could have switched around and had like the steel cage match, and then
give yourself time to build it up and everything.
Yep. You do that, or you could do the Bloodsport fight. I know that was later on in the card, and maybe you don't want to put as big of a name in that spot, but any of the things where like you have an excuse for setting up that time that it takes to do those changes. And hell, you could lean into the steel cage match of like showing it being constructed, like talking about these things, like add some story, add some build up to it. But just doing their entrances, have these people come out and kill the time. And I know there's a lot of things that we don't know that could have happened. Like they could have had their introduction start, and then someone could have come up and been like, hey, we can't have the match start yet because we found out about this rule. But I feel, especially someone who comes from a production side of thing in events and theater, um, uh, those type of rules should be made very clear to people that are coming in and doing those things, and there should be backup plans. So it's like the same thing, like if it's a thing like first aid, or emergencies, and the rule is you need to have an ambulance there and a medical team there to be aware of anything that happens. And if that emergency situation, that supply is taken and you have to wait till it's replenished, it's like we have this one band-aid in the first aid kit, so if someone gets cut, we got to go buy a new band-aid. Well, why would you not just have more band-aids there? So it's like, I don't understand why, if that's the rule for the commission, then why don't we have multiple ambulances there? And I know there might be a cost thing, but at least having two there prevents a situation like this from happening. Because even if something happened in this match and that second ambulance had to take them, you still have the time of this match and the other ambulance leaving, that it's like, okay, that first one left, well, let's bring in a third one so that can be our backup now. So I just think there's a lot of things that could have gone into place in case something like this happened. And I don't expect for people to know that this would happen, but if you have that strong of stipulations with your commission, then there's forward planning that I think that should have happened on someone's part, whoever was involved in that. But ultimately, I feel like this really, really put a bad taste in the people that were there watching's mouth. Like, no one really seemed to bounce back from it. I feel a lot of the performers, it was like, felt like it was really hard for people to get back out there, and for the performers to kind of win the audience back. Which is a shame, because there are a lot of people that went out there and tried really hard. And nothing against these 6 competitors, because I think they went out and tried to do as best they could. It's just everyone got stuck in a situation that just was a crappy situation to be in. But we talked about that a lot. And I know a lot of people have had their opinions on it. Nothing against these folks. The OGs pick up the victory. Good on them. I hope we can just bounce back from this, and we moved on from this to a match that is unfortunate that it had to follow that, because it did actually really pick up and had some really good action in it. And that was the GCW World Tag Team Championship match with Violence Forever, the most defending champions in GCW history, for the tag team division, and the Garbage Daddies, the rising stars of professional wrestling. I was so excited about this match. This is one of the matches I was really looking forward to. I feel like the Garbage Daddies earned it. They I felt like as soon as I saw them starting to go after those titles, I was like, yeah, they deserve to win this. They deserve to be the new champions, especially as Violence is Forever has pretty much done everything that they could do with those titles. I know you're a fan of all 4 of these guys, but especially the Garbage Daddies. Going back and watching this, I enjoyed it even more when I just went straight to this match and watched it from the beginning of this match. What were your feelings, both, heading into this match and with your feelings after the match, after getting to see that action and things kind of pick back up for the night?
So as soon as I saw that this match was coming up next after what we had just witnessed, I wasn't worried. I was like, okay, this match is going to start the momentum back up again, because we have seen these two go at it previously at another GCW event for these titles, and it was just as fantastic. So I knew these 4 were going to carry this match and give us really, really fun stuff, and they really, really did. I don't know if it was because of everything that happened beforehand, but I was like, I feel like we got like 5 minutes less than I thought we could.
Yeah.
But I am still okay with it, because what we got was fantastic. The Garbage Daddies everybody working as a tag team. Garbage Daddies flying all over the place. Violence is Forever, just beating tar out of them. It was really great. I love this match so much.
I will say, I just noticed as we're reviewing this, we literally, because the Ali and Effie match didn't really happen, it wasn't until after this match that we had an actual singles match take place, which is insane because we were, what, 6 matches? Well, technically 5 matches into this card, and there was not a singles match that had actually taken place.
Nope.
But the good news is the Garbage Daddies are your new GCW Tag Team Champions, finally picking up that title, very deservedly so. I am so excited to see what they are going to do with those titles. There's so many tag teams for them to face off against, and it's great because, Violence is Forever fought everybody. They fought all the GCW tag teams. They fought every tag team that they could find when they went other places. And from what we've seen of the Garbage Daddies over the last few months, especially since Cole Radrick has come back from injury, they have improved every single time that I've seen them as a tag team. So I'm so excited to see what their GCW Tag Team Championship run looks like. And I'm interested to see what happens with Violence is Forever coming out of this. Are we going to see them kind of do their own thing? Are we going to see them try to go back after the Garbage Daddies? Are we going to see them show up some other places? Either way, I'm excited to see what we're going to get from all 4 of these performers. We left the tag team match and we went to our first actual singles match of the night, which was a steel cage match, which technically also wasn't just one-on-one. We had multiple people involved in this match as well. So we had Charles Mason taking on Richard Holiday in a steel cage match, which was another culmination of a long-term story that had been going on. And this was a fun one. This was kind of, all things considered, I think this match could have happened a little earlier in the card and maybe switched some stuff up, just because it's an interesting story match, but it didn't carry as much weight as some of the other things. And with how things turned out, hindsight being 2020 and all that, there's just things that we look back on differently. But all that aside, I thought this was a fun, entertaining steel cage match. Charles Mason is crazy and will, just throw himself around a steel cage. And Richard Holiday, is great at being the slimy, douchey kind of guy. As they talked about, we basically had the murderer versus the rat, and the fact that everyone was booing the snitch and cheering on the psycho was pretty funny. But we also got some involvement from Paro, and we got a lot of crazy action happening. I will say that the steel cage was the most rickety steel cage that I think I've ever seen.
And it was still standing by the end of the match.
I'm surprised. I mean, maybe it's because of how close the cage was to the audience, but I expected the way it was built, like one of those sides of the steel cage was coming down.
I was expecting a Bobby Lashley where you just spear through and it just falls.
Yes. And we've seen it before when Effie fought Mance.
Yeah,
went through the steel cage.
Sure did.
But how did you feel about this being the kind of payoff for the story that we were getting, and ultimately the outcome of this match?
So first, I love the intro video we got because it was creepy as hell. But also shout out to whoever is in charge of GCW's like cinematography for these promos needs to get a raise, because I'm like, you went to film school and I'm here for it. Yeah. Like I'm weird. I love me some good cinema in my wrestling. So when you're able to kind of mix cinema and wrestling very well together, like it's fantastic. And it's always going to get a pop out of me. But yeah, you pretty much covered everything. It was the snitch versus the psychopath, if you will. First of all, Charles Mason coming out with the freaking Hannibal Lecter mask. Yeah. I was like, maybe a couple sizes too large, but in a weird way, when I rewatched it, I was like, it looks like that mask is creepily smiling at me.
Yeah,
It reminds me of the mask from Courage the Cowardly Dog. Anybody who's watched that show, like with that one episode with the big old mask, I'm like, no. But yeah, we got interference from Paro. We also got, I don't know if it's returning, but we also had Slade get involved in
yeah.
some capacity, though he didn't really do much, to be completely honest, outside of do one thing, and then that was it. But I thought the match was great. I thought this was a now I say this was a fun conclusion to this chapter of the story, because I do not think we are far from, in my head, we are far from over to this feud being finite, like for good. So I think this chapter is complete, and I'm interested to see where we go next. Because Mr. Holiday, I believe you're also going to be busy in, the UK very soon. So I enjoyed
Well,
this match. This was fun.
eh, and Charles Mason has been showing up in HOG quite a bit as he wrestles over there. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a Charles Mason and a Slade against Richard Holiday and Paro tag match at some point in GCW. Yeah, I agree. I think there's going to be a little bit more of this. That I don't think the victory was as finite as it could have been, or as it could be for the end of that story. Though seeing Charles Mason choke out Richard Holiday with a chain was pretty fun. But we moved on from this match to a match that you and I were both very excited to hear about when it got booked, and that was Sydney Akeem versus Vikingo. I'll be honest, I was very worried about Vikingo because he is a dude who cannot stay healthy, and I get worried every time I see him wrestle because I absolutely want him to stay healthy because I think he's an incredible performer. I felt like Vikingo was a little worried. I kind of felt like this match was a little, I don't know if it was low energy or
It was very
low
cautious.
risk. I'm not. Yeah. I'm glad. See, I felt that way, and I didn't want to judge it that way because even rewatching I thought maybe it was just my energy at the time, but when I rewatched it, it still felt like this was not what I've seen from both of these people.
So I think cautious. So initially, I was like, "This." The first when we first watched it, my initial thought was, "This is very cautious." And then upon a rewatch, I was like, "Cautious." I don't think is the correct word, but I feel like for the first time for both of them, this is the most in their head I have seen both
Hmm.
Sydney and especially Vikingo be in their head. I mean, for me personally, Sydney doesn't really shouldn't be in his head so much, but I get it because the Hammerstein Ballroom is a big venue, and especially it has a lot of wrestling history attached to it, so I can understand that. Poor Vikingo was probably in his head because Lord knows this boy has had what in the last 3 matches, like had to be rolled out of the arena either in a stretcher
Yeah.
or so he had to be rolled out of the TNA typing after Bound for Glory, which was unfortunate. His match at unboxing at Progress Wrestling over the holidays got stopped, which sucked for our Lycos gym homie. Which I was like, ugh, I wanted to see the finish of this match because it was getting good. And so I think Vikingo was in his head of be like, all right, let me try not to hurt myself here. I was like, Vikingo, please be careful, but also I need you to defy every law of physics and gravity right now, like I know you can.
Yeah, it
So,
was, and I'm sure seeing what happened to Ali, and it's one of those
oh,
things where it's like
big time.
off of a simple move for these two, a simple move like that, someone getting hurt like the way that she did, like that's gotta be a little bit in the back of your head. And
Mm-hmm.
for someone like Vikingo who is coming off multiple injuries, and had previous injuries that have taken him out for a while, when this is your style, like it's got to play a little bit in there. And it's unfortunate because, again, I don't blame either of these performers. Like they still went out, and for anybody else, this would solid match. Um, but for these two, it just felt like it wasn't expectation, and I think our expectations for a lot of things on this card is kind of what set us up. I think we set that bar so high for a lot of things that maybe we set it too high. I don't know. I still thought this was a great match. It was fun, but it didn't have what I expected from it. It didn't have the impact on me that I was hoping that this match would have. But ultimately, Sidney Hakim comes out of this continuing his undefeated streak. I believe he's now 18-0 in GCW. I'm enjoying seeing him win, but I think now is the time to let's start seeing some more stuff from Sidney Hakim. I was really interested that he came out with Culture Inc. And I'd like to see some story with Sidney other than Sidney is this guy that got let loose from the big company and is now coming here and showing who he really is. Now I want to see more of who he is, what he can do, and I want to see him go after something. Ideally a title of some sort in GCW. Like I want him to have some sort of position. And I want to see some development now because we've seen what he can do in the ring. So now let's see him as the whole package of what he can bring to GCW.
Agreed.
So, because we had 2 singles matches, it was time to move on to another multi-person match, which was our second 6-man match of the evening. And that was Los Desperados versus, the Vets, basically, Super Crazy Tajiri and Little Guido. I definitely thought this match was better than the previous 6-person match. There were some spots in here that were really fun. I think if we hadn't had so many multi-person matches before this, I would have enjoyed this match even more. I love the team of Los Desperados when they bring in Jack Cartwheel because I think he plays really well with the other two, and he's such a unique character to put in there that you just wouldn't expect it, but he works really well with them. And I'll say I was surprised by the veterans that they were still able to do some of the stuff that they did. And the finish, I thought, really the craziness of Super Crazy and the finishing sequence really were the 2 high points of this matchup for me. What was your feeling on this match? And how did you feel about this at this point in the evening?
I agree with you. I feel because we had so many multi-person matches already, I was like, so if I had to save one, or if I had to eliminate, I'm gonna be real. Like if I had to rank everything, this match, not because I thought this match was bad, but because of all the man matches, I would save this one over the one that we got previously earlier in the evening for the main card because I was more entertained with this one, but that's because of everybody who was involved. Also, I popped for the tarantula because I was like, yes, give it to me. It was just fun, and sometimes that was enough for me, especially of how late it was getting.
Yeah, that was the other thing. It was already a heavy card. They added a bunch of stuff afterwards. Things made the card go on longer than I think it needed to. Yeah, we heard from Brett Lauderdale earlier in the evening, and I think his thing was twice or 3 times as long as it needed to be. Yeah, I think there was just some stuff that drew out the evening and really sapped everyone's energy. The 6 did a good job, but they were definitely fighting an uphill battle.
Yeah, it's I just feel bad for Los Desperados because this is definitely a match. They're like, all right, we're gonna have a good time, but they are already getting ready to go. Look forward to for what they're about to do because I'm like, I believe they are about. Yeah, they will be in London not too long from now. So I'm just like, all right. And it's sad because I was like, this match should be fun, but I'm more excited for what's about to go down in London. So I'm just like, I feel like I would have
Yeah,
liked this match
and I
more
think
if we
that's
did not have these legends fight these guys. So that's just me. That's just me, though. Oh no, I have stunned him into silence.
absolutely. It's hard because Los Desperados they bring such high energy. Um, and I know what they're trying to do with these legends.
Okay, I think we caught up with the delay. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe we'll see. Hi, how we doing? The internet's being weird right now. I'm mad.
Hello? Yeah,
I can hear
it's
you.
super
Can you
weird.
hear me?
Um,
Okay, we're
yeah,
good.
I
We're
can hear
back.
you. Yeah, ultimately, I think those Desperados could have been used a little better. Like, I give credit to the veterans for what they have done and everything like that. Um, I have an issue when I just don't think it was needed. I think you could have. I mean, if anything, I think we could have had Los Desperados versus the real effing pros, and had a more interesting match. Um, but that's neither here nor there. I do have to say, I think it's unfortunate that, as you've pointed out a few times, and I definitely feel this way, and I think other people may feel this way too, is I feel like we're coming out of the People versus GCW, and instead of being like, oh my God, GCW did it, they got their revenge for the opinions of their last Hammerstein event. They have shown what they've been doing over the last year, and instead we're coming out of this card going, I'm really excited for the next one and what's going to happen, because that one looks like it's going to be really fun. um, but all that aside, Los Desperados pick up the victory. We get a fun spot with Tajiri, Arez, and a couple doses of mist. So it at least ended on a fun note. And we moved on from this to really our final stretch of the evening, and it felt like the we got all of our big matches left, which really most of this could have been an entire card unto itself.
Right.
But we started off with the Bloodsport fight. Which was originally an open challenge from Josh Barnett. And we found out a couple weeks ago that it would be Tom, don't call me Baron Corbin Pestock, facing off in his first Bloodsport match in GCW against Josh Barnett. And I was pleasantly surprised by this. I since seeing him in NXT as part of the Wolf Dogs, I respect Baron Corbin and Tom Pestock. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do post WWE. But I thought this was a really fun way to kind of show him outside of that world. And I thought he looked really good in a match style that really Josh Barnett is like the king of.
I actually really enjoyed this match. I really did. And what was it, like maybe a day or two before the show? We got the official confirmation that it would be Mr. Tom Pestock taking on Josh Barnett. I'm like, all right, so let's see where we're going from here. And then he gets into the ring. I'm like, Josh Barnett's already a tall dude. How do you manage to out tall a tall dude? Like, Josh Barnett is tall. Tom Pestock is like 2-3 inches taller than him. I'm like, I'm afraid they would step on me like an ant. Like, holy crap, y'all are some tall mofos. This was fun.
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was going to continue on with what you were saying. Is like, yeah, it was. I think that was also a really smart choice, was that they brought in somebody who even though we haven't seen him in a blood sport match, like physically, he looks as imposing as Josh Barnett does, or at least as close to as imposing as Josh Barnett looks as you can find.
Yeah, and like I said, the match itself was really fun. Tom, the crowd was so behind Tom. I loved it. Unfortunately, nobody can beat the master and the originator of the Bloodsport match in Mr. Josh Barnett. And you and Professor were both there. I'm like, bring him back for Bloodsport in Vegas. Bring him back to
Yeah.
Bloodsport 13. I want to see him there.
If we're not going to get him in GCW anytime before then, I'd love to see him come back for another Bloodsport match. There's a great story you can tell there of Josh Barnett being so impressed with Tom, who we now have since found out will be going by the name of Bishop Dyer. So, him making his appearance as Bishop Dyer in the next Bloodsport event could be a fun way of like Josh Barnett was impressed with him, respects him, so now he wants to give him another shot in Bloodsport. And have Tom pick up a victory there. I'd love to see him in GCW. I believe he's had some talks with some other companies too, so I wish him the best and hope we get to see more of him soon. I know some people were probably not as excited about the finish because it kind of came suddenly, but as we talked about in the live stream, this is a style of professional wrestling that's emulating mixed martial arts. And in mixed martial arts, that happens. Someone gets knocked out super quick or gets caught in a submission, and that ends the match, and it's faster than you expect it to, but that's combat sports. And I think when you're having something that emulates I do not know what's going on with my internet here today. It's crazy. I've been having online meetings for the past few days and I've been fine.
I was about to start miming and be like,
as I was saying, I think, they do a really good job with Bloodsport of running that line between professional wrestling and combat sports. So I thought this was a really fun match. And I think they do a good job of bringing this into GCW. But like you said, Josh Barnett ultimately picks up the victory because he is the godfather of Bloodsport. And we moved on from this to a match that became my match and moments of the night, which was Megan Bayne finally facing off against Atticus Cogar, culminating the kind of few weeks long showdown between these two because Cogar came back at Nick Gage Invitational, attacked Sawyer Wreck, and since then has just been attacking everybody, and it looked like he was going to be in the DLC match. But after losing his chance at calling his shot to Megan Bayne in the Do or Die Rumble, he targeted Megan Bayne and started going after her in some pretty vicious and crazy ways. But I was already excited for this match, and the way that it ended, man, I tell you what, like I had all the feelings about the way that this match ended. What did you think about the lead into this matchup, Mikey, and the match even before we got to the actual finish portion?
Presentation is something that wrestling fans don't necessarily talk about too often because I think the presentation of wrestling characters definitely is an additive to the match we're about to get. And I think by the end of this, looking over everything that happened, I agree with you. This is my match of the night, only because this feud showed that you do not need to have like months of story to lead up to a really great match. This was literally, as you said, first and foremost, built up upon maybe like a couple weeks, a month and a half, maybe. And it was so compelling. Also, Atticus, you are a sick freak. because he comes out in this like House of Wax-esque mask. And what made it crazier is that underneath it was painted like red. It was as if he ripped someone's skin off while
Mm-hmm.
and was wearing it. I'm like, that is terrifying. And then to add the craziness factor, once he gets into his gear, we see that his pants have pictures of Megan Bain on them. And also on the other side has like Joey Janela's name crossed off. And I was like, this is a whole stalker
Mm-hmm.
versus a stocky match. And I was like, I'm here for this. Atticus, though, you picked the wrong person, though, because Megan Bain, we're far enough in. Megan Bain is going to fuck you up. But I love this. The chemistry between these two were really great. They were there. You know, this was my first real introduction. Well, I mean, not my first real introduction, but I was like, all right, Atticus, let me see, because you know, when you returned at the Nick Gage Invitational, you were my first introduction to you. So let me see what you about. I like what I see, and I'm happy that he seems to be sticking around for a little bit because you know him and his brother are about to fight Genesis at Up All Night, so that's
Yeah.
gonna be fun. And he's also in the J Cup, which we'll talk about that at the end because this J Cup lineup is stacked. So,
Well, and as we found out, that could mean even more, considering we know this Sunday Megan Bain may have a big thing to say about the J Cup.
uh, sorry, I'm
Uh,
excited.
Oh, I'm so excited! I can't wait. But yeah, no, I thought this was such a good dynamic, and I think they hit on a lot of stuff that can make. I hate to call it this because it's just wrestling, but what people call intergender wrestling, um, and because the big powerhouse in this match was Megan Bain,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
she was also the person being psychologically messed with. And Atticus Koger was giving up size and power, but was the crazy, as you said, stalker character. And so they played with a dynamic that we often associate with a man in one role and a woman in the other role. While on the other side, we had a woman taking the role that would often be taken by the man, being the bigger, stronger powerhouse of it. Um, and meshing it all together in this. And it mixed so well because Megan Bain, especially, but GCW does this with a lot of their performers. There's not a lot of the time when we have people of different genders wrestling each other in GCW that it feels like, oh, this is unfair, this is uneven, this is that thing. Like we have like Marsha Slamovich, Megan Bain, Ali Catch, Rina Yamashita, like Brooke Havoc. We have these people who they are wrestlers and they're fighting other wrestlers, no matter what the genders of any of the people involved. And this match was a great example of that. Um, and Atticus Koger is just such a crazy guy that, I mean, it doesn't matter who you are, you can't help but be unnerved by just being in the ring with him. As we've seen when he faced off against Effie, he's had run-ins with Janela, and one called Manders. So, yeah, this match was great, but ultimately Otis comes out and looks as if he's going to cost Megan Bain the matchup, attacks Megan as she's about to, put a nail into Atticus Koger and pick up the victory. And it looks like the Kogers are going to really, pick up the victory here and beat down on Megan Bain when a hooded and masked individual comes out from the audience, bear maces Atticus Koger, and is revealed to be none other than Sawyer Wreck, who, as they indicated, is still retired, but is there to make the save. And I will tell you, when I saw that, I got got all the goosebumps, got all the chills. Like, I was so happy, so happy. It made just for her to be there. Like, I was even just hoping she was going to be there for the title match, just to be the I'm here to see it get sent off, but to see her get involved in this, save Megan Bain, tase Atticus Koger, get revenge and redemption for what Koger did to her at the Nick Gage Invitational, and then have her stand there with Megan Bain, who are these two, as you said, we're far enough in, these two bad bitches that are like, just, you they're just two women, two wrestlers you don't want to mess with. And it was just so awesome. It was such an awesome moment. I was so excited. Like even now I can't stop smiling. So it was so cool to see it, and I was so happy. Um because I know there's a lot of people, and I'm one of them, like just seeing Sawyer Wreck wrestle like just makes you happy even in the craziest ways. And I love Megan Bain too. Like these are two people that have quickly become, some of my top performers. So to see them there and her help Megan win, or even just help defend her so Megan can pick up the victory on her own, was just such a cool moment. And for that moment, I really felt like where I wanted to feel with the people versus GCW for that moment. Um, and I think that's one thing that really made it stand out for me, was the fact that it was such a high in this kind of ups and downs that we got for the rest of the card.
Oh, absolutely. I 100% agree with you. Watching Sawyer come out also made me really smile. I was like, oh, this is amazing. This is great. And, if Sawyer wasn't retired, if she was still there, I was like, Megan and Sawyer as a team. I will buy that merch in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But no, I love that she was able to kind of help Megan get hers while also simultaneously
Yeah.
getting a lick back, as the kids say, against Atticus. I love this. This was fantastic. And watching Sawyer and Megan celebrate in the ring together was so fantastic. I love Megan because she takes her character so seriously, and then to watch her like low key kind of twerk a little bit before going back into character gets a pop out of me. She's starting to be able to like put in the hints of like what any good serious wrestling character has been able to do, because the most serious wrestling characters in real life, they are the funniest persons. There are so many examples of that. And so Megan is starting to become one of those for me, and I love it. I love her even more for it.
100%. Like I said, this was my moment and my match of the night because of this moment. Like, I didn't care what happened in any other matches. The way that ended just did it for me. But we moved on to a match, or I should say matches, that didn't so much do it for me. And it's unfortunate because the payoff that we... Oh, I'm sorry. I was about to jump one. Let's go back. Yes, we we forgot about Joey Janela and Maki.
You made me second guess myself. I was like, hold on.
Yeah, no. This match did. This match was good. This match was really good. I take it back. This match did it for me. It's the next match that really didn't do it for me as much. Janela versus Tanaka was, Joey Janela, when he announced this matchup, he talked about all of the other Japanese wrestlers that he's wrestled and faced off against and all the stuff that he's done. And so he challenged Tanaka to this match at this event. I thought this was a smart booking because Janela is one of the faces of GCW. Like, he is up there with Mance Warner. He's up there with Effie. And I thought this was a really good place to use him. It made sense. It's another match that didn't need a title to have some weight to it, because that this match meant something to Janela, and Janela has such big respect for a lot of these professional wrestlers. I thought the match was hard hitting. It was Janela once again showing that he's really good at fighting the style of the people he's wrestling, but also highlighting the people he's wrestling. And I mean, these two were just slapping the crap out of each other. We'll get to the surprise announcement that followed the match afterwards, but what was your thoughts on this match, Mikey?
I agree with you. As soon as I saw that Masato Tanaka was about to face Joey Janela at this, I'm like, all right, where's the icy hot? Because everybody gonna be sore in the morning. This was just hard hitting, and it's really fun to witness, at least for me, to see the transformation of Joey Janela as a wrestler from when I was first introduced to him, and then of course, his reputation on the scene
Mhm.
kind of made him a pariah for a little bit, and then now he's kind of like the transformation, not just as a person but as a wrestling character. I love watching Joey in GCW. He's really fantastic. He is, I don't think it was you who said this, but like when he cut that promo at the Showboat during
Yes.
Fight Club weekend, I was like, yeah, he could be the Eric Young for this company. Like he wants to, he loves what he does in GCW. He lives, breathes, bleeds GCW. So it was fun to watch. And I already knew, anybody who's familiar with Masato Tanaka's work knows that Joey had his work cut out for him. There were like 2 times where I thought this man decapitated him with the elbow. I was like, oh my gosh, I think I just witnessed Joey die. Like, and that's saying something. There was one spot though that briefly took me out of it, but then we got back to it when they tried to go through that table and it
Oh,
did not
yeah.
break. I'm like, you just watched 2 whole humans bounce off a table and it didn't break. I'm like, oh no. I'm like, they're gonna feel that in the morning.
Yeah, they had some thick tables at this event.
I was like, oh, that hurts watching me. And I thought watching like the Japanese tables in New Japan like look like they hurt a lot because of how tiny they are. This one didn't even break.
Yeah. It's funny you bring up that about Joey Janela and GCW. For me, he's kind of like, he gives me the feelings of like if you mixed Daniel Bryan with Seth Rollins. Like
I could see that.
he's like he's like that, not only character but also like person behind the scenes. Like he comes off as such like a crazy loose cannon, don't give a crap about anything,
This man's
fly
about to
by the
stick
seat
his
of his
whole
pants.
head out the window on the freeway.
Yeah. But the more you get to watch him and like listen to him talk and everything, you realize how much how much he cares about wrestling history, how much he cares about the people that put in that work, how much he cares about the industry, the respect he has, especially for wrestlers from other countries that are like veterans. Like, so mad respect to Joey Janela for that. And speaking of his respect for veterans, following this matchup, we got an appearance I don't think any of us saw coming, which was Sabu coming into GCW, and he didn't say anything, but Joey Janela said it all, and that was that Joey Janela would be more than happy to wrestle Sabu in Sabu's retirement match. Okay. Not something I thought we were going to get in 2025 because honestly, I thought Sabu was retired already.
That's what I
But
thought too. I was like, what? The man can't go anymore. Like, what?
yeah, um, I really don't want to see a Ric Flair esque situation with Sabu against Joey Janela. So I'm interested to see what we're going to get in that matchup. Um, Again, mad respect to the vets that, and especially to people like Sabu, because Sabu is not as old as some other performers are that are still out there doing it, but the dude, the years on his body are like twice the years he's had on this earth.
Seriously.
He's put his body through so much, and that just takes a toll. So my hope is that they can do it in such a way that lets him go out gracefully, but also gives us an entertaining show.
And I'm
But
like, it makes sense it's happening at spring break. I was like, because that's where
yeah,
Sabu lives. He's in Vegas.
yeah. So we'll see how that all goes. That's Joe Janela's show. I'm sure they're going to do some craziness with that. I wouldn't be surprised if there'll be some other shenanigans and stuff, but we'll see what happens. But ultimately, Joey Janela picked up the victory over Tanaka. They had a great moment in the ring. He paid a lot of respect, as he does, and yeah, it was.
once again into the void.
Um,
There we go.
so it was a solid match that I really enjoyed. Had a lot of action, but I do feel like it suffered from being, you know, 10 o'clock at night or whatever it was. It felt like it was midnight by the time we got to this point. Even
Oh
though,
man, Andrew, like I verbally didn't say it, but by this point of the show, I was dragging ass.
yeah, yeah, I don't
I-
even think they could have. I don't think they could have pulled the energy back at this point. It was just everyone was so exhausted.
it was like almost 1 o'clock at over there. I'm like, holy crap,
Yeah,
bro! I'm like, some of us gotta go to bed. Like,
yeah,
and that's coming
but
from me, who is on the West Coast. Oh man, I was dragging ass by this point. I was like, can we get to the end? I still enjoyed myself, but I'm like, God help me. So I was like, ah. But yeah, no, I agree with you. You may continue.
the match I know was Mikey's match of the night, hands down, was Matt Cardona's open challenge because Matt Cardona came out, did his usual deathmatch royalty stuff, came out with Jimmy Broski, Jimmy Lloyd. They did their whole talk about Deathmatch King, Deathmatch Prince, blah blah blah. And then Mikey's favorite professional wrestler right now answered the open challenge of Taught Me Invincible. I know that was Mikey's favorite wrestler because when he came out, Mikey went, "Who's this guy?" The fact that their biggest selling point was that this guy was a social media personality was I I get what they were trying to do with this setting up, and Cardona picked up the victory for this first matchup really quickly, and he said, "No, no, 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 I want a real challenge. I want to. You send me the biggest and the baddest out there." So, of course, because it's the co-main event and we're deep into this like 5-hour card, why not have some ridiculous stuff happen that's just going to eat up more time? And Microman came out to face the open challenge,
Okay,
and
this bit was funny though. This part of the whole segment was funny. It was stupid, but it was funny.
it was too much. This whole thing was just too much. It if this was earlier on in the night, maybe it would have been more entertaining. But the fact that Matt Cardona is such a good wrestler, whether it's in like ridiculous wrestling, like comedic
Or
wrestling, that kind
not,
of stuff,
yeah.
or like just straight up wrestling, he's such a good wrestler. He's definitely one of the top guys. I mean, he's one of the guys that put GCW at that point because he's so invested in independent wrestling and GCW. Um, that we just need this. Honestly, you could have eliminated the first two parts of this, and I can't believe this happened. I'll toot my own horn. I called it before we got Tommy Invincible. I didn't think they were going to go this way because of all the shenanigans that were happening. But he issues a third challenge, and we hear Broski Jimmy's music, or actually Jimmy Lloyd's music, and we see Jimmy Lloyd behind Matt Cardona. You see a visual change to his face, and yeah, Jimmy Lloyd turns on Matt Cardona, and with Steph DeLander out, and Mance Warner worrying about his own things, I think we're seeing the official end of Deathmatch Royalty. Um, Jimmy Lloyd answers the open challenge, hits a radio silence on Matt Cardona, and officially gets the win, and says he's done. He's going to be who he really is. He's back to being Jimmy Lloyd, and I'm excited for it because when he's not being a tool of a character, Jimmy Lloyd is a really good wrestler. We got to see it in Japan, especially because when he was in Japan, he stepped away from being Broski Jimmy a bit, and he was much more like, because it was GCW versus everybody else. Um, and he was a GCW guy. And so we got to actually see what he's like in the ring that we haven't seen since he joined Matt Cardona. So I'm juiced by this, especially because I'm sure it means we're going to get a full-on Matt Cardona versus Jimmy Lloyd match. And there's a lot of angles that they could go with this, but that part was fun. But we could have just had that part, and I think we would have gotten just as big of a pop. I mean, look at the people behind him. That could have
Right.
been how it started.
Agreed. I feel that we could have done without the first two spots. As much as I loved the Microman, that was hilarious, but I was also delirious at that time. We could have just started with this; it would have been fine.
Yep.
And my conclusion, even upon a rewatch, I was like, love this for Jimmy. Moving on.
Yep. Yeah, we could have had many other matches be in this like co-main event or semi-main event position. But ultimately, we finally get to the main event. We get Mance Warner versus Effie for the GCW World Title match. I'm going to assume that
I'm going to
that's what
spoil
was.
it.
Oh,
Yeah.
what?
I'm going to spoil it because I couldn't find a graphic for the actual graphic, and all the other pictures they had of the match weren't necessarily flattering. So this is the only one I found.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So there you go. Effie won the GCW World Title. It was a fun match. It was also weird in this match. It's funny because the night started the same way as it ended. With the main card at least. Two matches that I expected there to be a bunch of blood and violence in, and they were incredibly tame for what we have gotten in the past.
Nope.
The fact that we've seen Mance Warner take a drill to Effie's head, we've seen them go through plate, we've seen them go through fences onto barbed wire tables, we've seen them use light tubes against each other. Mance Warner has hit people with that screwdriver and busted them open so many times. So many things have happened, and it was very tame. I was very happy that Effie won. It's time, and Effie deserves it. I cannot wait to see the Effie title run. I hope that he holds on to that title long enough for Ali to heal up, get back in there, and challenge Effie for that title. And I think that's a perfect opportunity for them to give Effie a nice run, let Ellie come back, have a little feud, and let Ellie take the title off of Effie. I thought that was good. I thought it was fun. I thought it was a good match. My biggest issue with this match is this was not the best match I've seen between the two of these guys.
No. And at first I was ready to be like, oh, maybe because the New York Commission, they couldn't. Even with that restriction, I was like, while it wasn't necessarily bloodied, their match at the mall at American was like just as crazy, and they didn't really bleed in that one either. I was like, we could have got that. Is it because it's almost like 3:00 in the morning over there? Not really, but it felt like it. But I was just like, I feel like there were a couple of sequences skipped in this match. Yeah, go ahead.
If you think about it, Effie had that match earlier, was still probably reeling from what happened in that match. They were probably both thrown off by that. Who knows what else was planned for this main event had Ali not gotten injured. But then on top of that, it was 4 hours later that this match was happening. That's a long time to basically sit backstage and wait for your scene to come up. That's hard. And I'm sure they felt the energy that was in the arena too.
Yeah, I was super excited that it was going to be Mance versus Effie because previous encounters, as we just discussed, were fantastic. While I am happy that, Effie is champion, I just I was a little underwhelmed and I felt a little disappointed. I was like, this was the match that got Effie to be there, because we have been crescendoing, if you will, of their previous encounters of Effie not being able to get one over Mance, whether it was because of interference, Ali turning, infighting, like all that good stuff. I wanted this match to be more. I love Effie so much, and Mance has done one hell of a job of being a healed champion since getting this title, and I loved it. I just really, really wished that this match gave me more. So, congratulations to Effie. I'm super excited he is champion, but yeah, I'm just disappointed. Oh no. See, Andrew was so disappointed by this match that he just does not exist anymore.
I just lost connection altogether on that. That was weird. Here, 1 second. You might lose me for a second. I'm going to switch.
So while Andrew recalibrates and Mance Warner is no longer hiding under his house.
Right.
Yeah, there we go.
I switched to my personal hotspot, so hopefully that'll be better.
I was so underwhelmed with this. I was like, they have had better encounters, and like I said, their match at the mall was what I was hoping that this championship match would be.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a bummer, but ultimately Effie, picks up the victory, so I'm happy about that. That means we are getting Effie versus Cara Noir in London for the GCW title. I think that's an awesome title shot or title match for Effie to have. I'm excited to see Effie's title run. I'm interested to see what's going to happen with Mance. Apparently now that he also wrestles in TNA.
That's a whole other can of worms. I was shocked, and I will say though, I am super excited because depending on how long he does the date, how many dates he's doing, I'm excited to introduce Will to Mance Warner. That's about to be crazy. I'm like, Will, you thought heels in TNA were crazy? Oh no, bish! Like Mance is on a whole nother level.
Yeah, I want to see Mance go after some people. Like, I'd be there for a Mance Warner versus Nick Nemeth feud, or Mance going after Joe Hendry. I mean, you talk about the dude that everyone despises versus the dude that everyone loves. Like, yeah,
I want to see maximum carnage, and I want somebody's gonna die metaphorically by the end of the match. So give me Mance versus Santana. Like, those two would kill each other, and I'm just like, I don't think the world is ready for it. But I'll be watching with through my fingers the whole entire time.
Even watching Mance versus like Eric Young or Steve Macklin or something.
Oh my goodness!
I mean, yeah. But anyway, that brings us to the end of GCW People versus GCW. Effie closes out the show, winning the world title. I'm interested and hopeful for where we go following this event.
Yeah.
I still love GCW. Mad respect to all the people involved. Best wishes to Ellie Catch. But as we bring it to the end, we wrap up our reviews. So I'm going to go to you first, Mikey. What were your overall opinions after the night was all said and done, and what would be your grade for this event?
So, taking into what my initial thoughts were when we watched it live on Sunday, and then giving it a bit of a rewatch earlier in the week too, bit by bit, and kind of chunking it a little bit. I still overall enjoyed the People versus GCW. However, and again, it's no fault to Ali, but that moment definitely took the wind out of the sails for a little bit, but thankfully it got back on track. I know that we're used to GCW kind of giving us lots of matches. I will say that, and I'm using this as a verb now, I feel like this event kind of AEW'd itself a little bit because, and I say it because anybody who watches the AEW reviews, especially the pay-per-view reviews, knows that, we get 16 matches, which includes 4 pre-show matches and 12 on the main card. I feel like this event AEW'd itself because there were so many matches, and I feel like we could have cut some of them out, and it still would have been a great show. I I kid you not, Andrew. I clocked in. I saw how long our live stream was. I'm like, this bitch was 6 hours. I'm like, that's like that's like 2.5 Star Wars movies. Like, what is happening? Like, holy crap. I was, and it was barely like 9:30, and I was ready to like say goodbye to the world and go to bed.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm done. I'm out. Bye. Like, and I think though there were some highlights. So obviously, the Garbage Daddies winning the tag team championships was a highlight. Watch having Sawyer kind of even the odds and letting her get her lick back against Atticus was great. There were some other moments in between the show that was great, but because of my loves and my critiques of it, and I still think this is a fair grade. I give this a B minus of a show. I don't think it was inherently bad, but there was just way too much. And even though what happened to Ali was unfortunate, I do have to take it into consideration because GCW could have, you know, had other options to fill that space. And like you said earlier, Andrew, they didn't. So hopefully this is a learning lesson for GCW moving forward that wherever they go, especially if they come back to New York, let's have some options.
Yeah.
You should always plan for A, B, C, D, and triple Z, like everything. I still enjoyed the show, but I give this a B minus.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with a lot of what you said. I'll take you one step farther. I think they ROH'd it. It was, we had plenty on what you were telling us we were going to get to begin with, and it felt like the instructor that tells you they want a 5-page paper and you're the student that turns in the 8-page paper, and it's like, no, I didn't need all that extra stuff. You're not getting extra credit for extra work. We're going to grade you on what was requested, and we didn't need all this extra stuff. It felt like they started off with a really good mixture of having a good show going back to Hammerstein, and they felt like they had to go above and beyond, and it was too much. I agree, no blame on the people for the things that they had no control over. I will go as far as to say I think GCW just needs to not go to the Hammerstein. And
it curses the mojo.
Yeah. And I mean, I think they could. I haven't seen stuff like this happen in other New York-based shows that they've had, but I'm really hoping that the next few events they have really get us back on track with GCW. For this card, there were things I really enjoyed, things I could have done without, things I really didn't care for, things that were super unfortunate. Even with the watch through again. With just as much as excess as there was, things that didn't pay off to what they could have been. I give this a C plus, and I usually give GCW between a B to an A, but this was a C plus show for me. Just not because the good things weren't good, but because there was so much average that just is what it brought the score to. I think you could take a lot of things away from this event, and GCW still is doing things better than a lot of the other people are. So, it's not a knock on them as a company. It's not a knock on the performers, but this felt like an overall averaged out show of highs and lows for me.
Right, which is unfortunate because at least for me, I wanted this to be the kickoff for 2025 for GCW in terms of like big momentum. And I think some momentum is still there, but I feel like because of everything that went down and, the way that the show is booked and everything, I think it definitely has slowed it down a little bit. I still think that it's early enough in the year for them to recover. So here's hoping that, well, I mean, technically we're covering live in London next week, but that's just, to me, that GCW show is just a GCW show versus UK talent, which is still fun. Sometimes we need palate cleanser. I'm really hoping that the J Cup is going to bring this momentum because that's the next kind of big quote unquote event for GCW, since it's a 2-day tournament, which I'm excited for. And the fact of who they have laid out as participants so far, and we are getting like a 2 different matches of one person. So like, okay, really quickly, we have, again, I'm reading off Twitter, so they didn't include everybody's name, but I can figure. So Aries, Mr. Drake, Rich Swan, Clark Connors, Drew Parker, Leon Slater, Sidney Akeem, Mr. Danger, Alec Price, Fuego del Sol, Jack Cartwheel, Marcus Mathers, Amazing Red, Masha Slamovich, and then just added today, Joey Janela and Atticus Koger. So that's going to be interesting. And then, even though he came in over the weight limit, we're about to witness 2 nights where Gabe Kidd kills somebody. Like, I'm excited. I have been a big fan of Gabe, and after Wrestle Dynasty, where him and Kenny Omega beat the piss out of each other for 32 minutes in Japanese strong style wrestling, I'm like, it's only day 6 of 2025, and I think I have my favorite match of the year so far. No, but I'm excited. I'm really hoping that the J Cup brings that momentum that this show didn't quite get to the heights of.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I feel like the last 4 events that they had leading into People versus GCW had such good stuff in it.
It was really solid.
Yeah. So hopefully they bounce back from all of this. I think they will. GCW has a way of doing that. Like you said, we've got some incredible matches coming up. We know we have Cara Noir versus Effie for the GCW World Title. We've got Megan Bain versus Masha for the JCW World Title.
My match of the night, already calling it.
We've got Lycos Jim versus Garbage Daddies for the GCW Tag Team title.
I'm excited.
So I think there's definitely a lot of stuff going on. As you know, we talk about offline a lot. Is we're big fans of Progress and Defy and stuff like that. So anytime we see these companies work together, it's always fire. And I think this is going to be a precursor to the collective that's coming up, because we're going to get all those companies working together for an insane 3-day event that is literally a 3-day event, because it's going to like start at 11 a.m. and like the last event starts at 11 p.m. So it's going to be an insane series of matches. But with all that, I think we've talked enough about GCW before we have our own version of People versus GCW. We've given our grades, wrapped up the show, and I think it's time for us to let everyone go and again for GCW.
Yeah, alrighty. So I will tag myself back in to do the outros. So on behalf of myself and Andrew, thank you so much for tuning in to our The People versus GCW review. We will, well, I got to talk to Andrew about this, but I'm sure we'll be back next Thursday to do a quick review on Live in London, because it's crossing over our GCW correspondent and officially your Progress Wrestling correspondent. So I'm excited to be taking the lead for Progress Wrestling. So I'm excited. So the 2 of us are going to be back here, and then we'll be back like 2 or 3 weeks later for the Jersey J Cup review. So that's going to be fun. But until then, you can enjoy what we have going on the rest of this week. Tomorrow night, you thought one pay-per-view review during the week was crazy. Tomorrow I'm back at it again with the second one. So it is going to be myself and Will who are going to be covering TNA Genesis, and also quickly talking about this Thursday's episode as well. So we're doing a double feature. Saturday, we got Saturday night's main event, where there will be a live watch along, which is not that hard to do. It's just a short 2-hour show. And I'm excited to see Rhea's champion again. So I'm just saying. And then, of course, Sunday is the WWE review, which is technically our final review before the Royal Rumble next Saturday. Lord have mercy. Crazy things are happening. And then, of course, you should tune into the evening because we're going to talk about the worst promos ever and the official start of season 2 of the BC Wrestle Podcast. So myself, Adolfo, and whoever else can join, we're going to talk about the worst promos, our favorite promos, and the so bad is good promos. And yes, Steiner Math is on the board. Oh my goodness. But if you want to see all the extra shenanigans that go down, check out our social medias. We have report cards for the weekly shows. We also have clips of our stupid faces talking about wrestling. So we love it. And, you know, it's just a vibe. It's a good time. So on behalf of all of us here at BC Wrestle Pod, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay Bi-Conic, and more importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. We'll catch you later tomorrow for TNA Genesis review. But until then, sayonara, adios, and we'll catch you later. Ta-ta for now.